There are moments in life when you look around and wonder, why me? Why does the storm feel stronger, the path feel longer, the loneliness deeper? But what if I told you those very struggles are the signs, not of rejection, but of divine selection? God never chooses the untested. He refines those he has favored. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are not overlooked. You are being positioned. And when God places his hand upon you, no one can erase your calling. Today, I want to reveal 7 unmistakable signs that you are one of God's favorite chosen ones, chosen for greatness, anointed for purpose, and destined for divine victory. When you are chosen by God, your life will often be marked by battles that seem too great for you to handle, struggles that appear unfair, and warfare that feels relentless. These unusual battles are not signs that you have been abandoned. They are evidence that heaven's favor rests upon you. The enemy does not waste his energy attacking people without purpose. He aims his weapons at those carrying divine destiny. If you feel like you are constantly under spiritual fire, it's not because you are weak or unworthy. It's because you are marked for greatness. The weight of your warfare reveals the weight of your calling. The chosen walk through seasons that others can't comprehend. While some live in comfort and predictability, those with divine assignments face resistance because their very existence threatens darkness. The higher the purpose, the greater the pressure. Every challenge is a divine classroom where faith is refined and strength is forged. God allows certain storms not to punish you, but to prepare you. The wind that seems to push against you is actually shaping your wings. You were never meant to drown in the waves. You were meant to learn to walk on them. When life feels unusually difficult, it is easy to question God's love or doubt your own worth. But chosen ones are called to see pain through the lens of purpose. The battles you face are not random. They are targeted attacks meant to distract or discourage you from stepping fully into your calling. Yet every time you rise from the ashes of disappointment, heaven applauds. The warfare you endure is not meant to break you, but to reveal what cannot be broken within you. God allows pressure because he knows what he has placed inside you: strength, endurance, resilience, and unshakable faith. Sometimes the chosen experience loss, betrayal, or delays that seem unjust. People may walk away, doors may close, and prayers may seem unanswered. But what looks like rejection is often divine protection. God removes certain things to make room for what truly aligns with his purpose for your life. Even in the middle of chaos, he is writing a story of victory that will one day make perfect sense. Your pain is the evidence that you are being prepared for something extraordinary. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is refined by fire. So it is with the soul of a chosen one. The intensity of your battle is proof of the value of your destiny. Consider the story of Joseph from Scripture. He was chosen at a young age, marked with divine favor and powerful dreams. But before he ever reached the palace, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison. His journey was filled with betrayal and injustice, yet every setback was a stepping stone to the throne God had prepared for him. Joseph's unusual battles were not signs of abandonment. They were the pathway to fulfillment. When his brothers finally bowed before him, he understood the divine truth. What was meant for evil, God turned for good. In the same way, your struggles are not random chaos. They are sacred preparation. Every storm, every disappointment, every heartbreak is heaven's way of strengthening your spiritual muscles. When you are chosen, your life will not be easy, but it will be meaningful. The very battles that make you weep today will one day become your greatest testimony. And when the dust settles, you'll realize that every wound you carried was proof that you were never ordinary. You were and always will be God's chosen one, shaped by fire, protected by grace, and destined to win every battle that was meant to destroy you. When you are one of God's chosen, there is something within you that refuses to be still. You may not have all the answers or even a clear map of where your life is heading, but deep inside your soul burns a quiet knowing, a sense that you were born for something more. This inner pull is not ambition or pride. It is divine purpose whispering to your spirit. It stirs in you when everyone else seems content. It wakes you in the middle of the night with questions and dreams you can't fully explain. It's as though heaven has planted a seed in your heart that keeps growing even when you can't see its fruit yet. That restlessness, that inner stirring, is a sacred sign. God often gives his chosen ones a glimpse of their destiny long before they are ready to walk in it. It's a divine preview, enough to spark faith, but not enough to remove the need for trust. When you carry a deep sense of purpose, you learn to walk not by sight, but by promise. You may not see the full picture, but you feel it. You might not understand the timing, but you know it's coming. This kind of faith keeps you moving forward when logic tells you to stop, and it holds you steady when everything around you looks uncertain. Those who are chosen often feel misunderstood because their hearts beat to a rhythm others can't hear. The world calls it restlessness, but God calls it preparation. You're not unsatisfied because something is wrong with you. You're unsatisfied because heaven is awakening something right within you. That divine dissatisfaction is not a curse. It's a calling. It keeps you from settling where you don't belong. It protects you from comfort zones that could rob you of your destiny. It pushes you to grow, to seek, to trust, and to keep walking toward the unknown. God never reveals the entire path at once. He leads step by step, moment by moment, so that your dependence stays on him, not on the plan. The chosen ones learn to obey even when they don't understand. They act on faith even when the vision seems blurry. And with every small act of obedience, the fog begins to clear and purpose begins to unfold. What you're feeling, that tension between where you are and where you're meant to be, is holy. It's heaven's way of pulling you closer to your divine assignment. Think of Moses in the palace of Pharaoh. He had everything: wealth, education, influence, yet his heart was restless. Something inside him knew he wasn't meant to sit comfortably while his people suffered. That deep, unexplainable stirring led him to make a choice that changed history. He left the comfort of Egypt for the wilderness of purpose. For years, he wandered uncertain and unseen. But even in the desert, the sense of calling never left him. And one day, standing before a burning bush, God revealed the fullness of what Moses had felt all along, that he was chosen to lead a nation to freedom. The purpose that once felt like confusion finally made sense. In the same way, your sense of purpose might not make sense right now. You might not know how or when God will use you, but you can trust that he will. That restless longing in your heart is not random. It's the mark of divine favor. You are being drawn toward the reason you were created. So when you feel that inner stirring, don't silence it. When you feel the weight of something more, don't ignore it. Keep trusting, keep moving, and keep believing. The same God who placed that purpose within you will, in his perfect time, bring it to life. You may not see the full picture yet, but one day you'll look back and realize the whisper you felt in your heart was heaven's voice leading you all along. When you are one of God's chosen, there will come a time when you begin to feel different, not superior, but set apart. It's as though something deep within you doesn't fit into the mold of the world around you. You might find yourself craving deeper conversations while others are content with shallow ones. You may feel a strong pull toward things of the spirit while those around you chase temporary pleasures. This difference can often make you feel misunderstood, isolated, and even rejected. But what may appear as rejection is not punishment. It is divine protection. God separates those he intends to use. He hides his most precious vessels until the right moment, not to deprive them of connection, but to prepare them for purpose. Being set apart can feel lonely because the process strips away the familiar. You may lose friends, opportunities, or relationships that once felt secure. You might find that people who used to understand you suddenly no longer do. Yet, this sacred separation is necessary. When God calls you higher, not everyone can come with you. Some people are meant for your past, not your purpose. The chosen often walk a narrow path, and that path rarely has a crowd. In those quiet spaces of solitude, God molds your heart, shapes your character, and strengthens your faith. What feels like isolation is actually incubation, the place where your purpose is formed. Many times, people misinterpret your stillness as arrogance or your silence as indifference. They can't see that you're in training, learning to hear the whisper of God above the noise of the world. You're not ignoring them, you're listening to him. God often conceals his chosen ones while he prepares them for divine assignments. When others are seen and celebrated, you might feel invisible, But invisibility is God's shield. It keeps you hidden from attacks and distractions that could derail your destiny before it begins. The chosen are not overlooked. They are preserved for the right season. This sacred separation builds spiritual strength. When you learn to walk with God in secret, you no longer depend on public approval. You begin to find joy in His presence rather than in people's applause. You start to see solitude not as a punishment, but as a privilege, a divine classroom where God Himself is the teacher. The chosen develop depth in silence, power in prayer, and wisdom in waiting. And when the appointed time arrives, God brings them into visibility, refined, prepared, and ready to carry His glory. A powerful example of this truth is the life of David. Before he was a king, he was a shepherd, alone in the fields, surrounded not by people, but by sheep. While others saw insignificance, God saw preparation. Those lonely days were not wasted. They were divine training grounds. In the solitude of the wilderness, David learned to worship, to fight, and to hear God's voice. He killed lions and bears in private long before he faced Goliath in public. If he had not been set apart, he would not have been ready. God used isolation to prepare him for elevation. In the same way, your season of being set apart is not a mistake. God is using the quiet to develop your strength, your discernment, and your intimacy with Him. The world may not understand your journey, but they were never meant to. You are not called to blend in. You are called to stand out. When God finally brings you into your purpose, those who once misunderstood you will see what He was doing all along. So don't despise your solitude. Embrace it. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. You are not alone. You are being shaped. You are not rejected. You are reserved for something sacred, something divine, something eternal. When you are God's chosen, one of the most beautiful and undeniable signs is the presence of divine favor, the kind that shows up in the most unlikely places, at the most unexpected times, and through people you never thought could be part of your journey. Divine favor is not earned by effort. It is granted by grace. It is the evidence that heaven has marked you. You may walk through seasons that seem barren, but somehow blessings still find their way to you. The path may not always be easy, but doors open where walls once stood. God's favor doesn't follow logic, it follows obedience. When you are chosen, circumstances begin to bend in your favor, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. Divine favor often appears when you least expect it. It can look like a job opportunity you didn't apply for, a connection that appears just when you're ready to give up, or a way being made where there was none. Sometimes you might even wonder, why me? But that's how God works. He delights in showing His glory through unlikely moments. When everything seems impossible, His favor turns impossibility into testimony. You may not always understand how things fall into place, but later you realize it was never coincidence, it was divine coordination. Every detail was part of God's plan to remind you that His hand is upon you. What makes divine favor even more powerful is that it doesn't depend on perfect conditions. It often shines brightest in seasons of darkness. When the world expects you to fail, God's favor lifts you up. When resources are limited, His provision multiplies. When others say, no, his yes still prevails, God does not need a perfect situation to bless you. He just needs a willing heart. You might find yourself in a place where everything seems uncertain, but still peace surrounds you, opportunities unfold, and help arrives out of nowhere. That's how divine favor works. It surprises you, humbles you, and reminds you that you're not walking alone. Many of God's chosen people experience favor in places they least deserve or expect it. This happens because God wants the world to know that His favor is not about human qualification, but divine selection. He blesses the least likely to show His limitless power. When you are chosen, you don't have to chase favor. It finds you. Even in hostile environments, God can raise up people to support you, protect you, and speak on your behalf. He can turn a stranger into a helper, a problem into a promotion, and a wilderness into a well of blessing. A powerful example of divine favor in unlikely places can be seen in the story of Esther. She was a young Jewish woman living as an exile in a foreign land. By human standards, she was insignificant, an orphan with no influence or status. Yet God's favor rested upon her so strongly that she was chosen to become queen. Even more remarkable, when her people faced destruction, Esther found courage to stand before the king, something that could have cost her life. But instead of death, she found favor. The king extended his scepter toward her, granting her not just mercy but power to save her entire nation. That moment wasn't luck. It was divine favor orchestrated by God. In your own life, you may not wear a crown or stand before a king, but divine favor can open doors just as mighty. It can place your name on hearts you've never met, position you for blessings you never pursued, and create opportunities that carry eternal purpose. God's favor doesn't mean you'll never face hardship, but it means even in hardship, you'll rise. You'll find peace in the storm, provision in the drought, and hope where others see none. So when something good happens unexpectedly, don't dismiss it as luck. Recognize it as the gentle whisper of heaven reminding you that you are chosen. Even when you don't see it coming, favor is already on its way, guided by the hand of the one who never forgets his own. When you are truly chosen by God, there will come a season when life feels like it's pressing you from every side. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken. You will feel the weight of loss, disappointment, betrayal, and exhaustion, and you will wonder why the road feels so rough. But what you must understand is this: God allows the crushing because there is something sacred hidden within you that can only be released under pressure. Just as an olive must be crushed to release oil, your anointing, strength, and purpose are revealed through the seasons of breaking. The crushing is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the process through which God transforms potential into power. When you are chosen, pain becomes the tool that heaven uses to purify your heart. The crushing strips away pride, fear, and self-dependence. It removes everything that cannot carry the weight of your calling. You learn to rely on God not because it's easy, but because there is nowhere else to turn. You stop trying to understand why and start trusting who. In the moments when you are on your knees, when tears are your only prayer, God is closer than ever. He does his greatest work in hidden seasons, shaping your soul, building your endurance, and preparing you for what's ahead. It is in the crushing that character is born. Before God can use you publicly, he must refine you privately. The chosen don't rise by comfort, they rise by surrender. Every tear becomes a seed that grows into wisdom, compassion, and resilience. The crushing may feel cruel, but it's divine craftsmanship. God is molding you into someone who can carry his glory without pride and walk through pain without losing faith. The same pressure that breaks others is the pressure that builds you because God's hand is upon you. When you emerge from the crushing, you are no longer the same person. The noise of the world no longer moves you because you've heard the whisper of God. You become gentle yet unshakable, humble yet powerful. You realize that your scars are not signs of defeat, but marks of survival. Proof that grace carried you through what should have destroyed you. The crushing turns ordinary people into vessels of extraordinary purpose. A powerful example of this truth can be found in the life of Joseph. He was chosen by God through prophetic dreams, yet his path to destiny was filled with pain. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned, Joseph experienced years of crushing. Every season stripped away something: comfort, trust, freedom. But each one also shaped his heart for greatness. Had he not been betrayed, he wouldn't have entered Egypt. Had he not been falsely accused, he wouldn't have met Pharaoh's officials. Had he not been forgotten in prison, he wouldn't have been ready to lead when his moment came. When Joseph finally stood before Pharaoh and became a ruler, he wasn't bitter, he was prepared. What others meant for evil, God used for good. The crushing didn't destroy Joseph, it refined him for his calling. In your life, the crushing will come and it will hurt. You might feel abandoned or forgotten, but heaven is watching. God sees every tear and hears every cry. The same God who allowed the pressure will use it to release your purpose. Do not curse the breaking. It is proof that there is oil within you. When the crushing ends, you will rise stronger, wiser, and more anointed than ever before. Your story will become someone else's hope. The pain that once broke you will one day become the very testimony that sets others free. That is the mystery of divine crushing. You may bend, but you will not break because God's hand is holding you through it all. One of the most profound signs that you are God's chosen one is your ability to love and forgive, even when life gives you every reason not to. The chosen carry a heart that refuses to grow bitter, no matter how many times it has been broken. It's not that you haven't been hurt. You have. You've faced betrayal, rejection, and misunderstanding. You've given your best and been met with silence or judgment. Yet somehow, you still choose compassion over resentment, mercy over revenge, and peace over anger. That's not weakness. That's divine strength. The world may call it narv, but heaven calls it powerful. The ability to forgive when you have every reason to hate is proof that God's Spirit lives within you. A heart that forgives is a heart that mirrors God Himself. The chosen understand that love is not a feeling that fades when people disappoint you. It's a decision to remain aligned with God's nature even in pain. When you forgive, you're not saying the hurt didn't matter. You're saying it won't control you. Bitterness builds walls, but love builds bridges. Forgiveness doesn't erase the memory, but it frees the soul from chains that hold it captive. The chosen know that holding on to anger only delays destiny. The moment you release those who hurt you, God releases you into greater peace and purpose. True love and forgiveness don't come from human effort alone. They are born from intimacy with God. When you walk closely with Him, His heart becomes yours. You begin to see people not as enemies, but as souls in need of grace, the same grace that saved you. That's what makes a chosen heart so rare and beautiful. You may feel pain deeply, but you also love deeply. You may cry in private, but you still choose kindness in public. You may be wounded, but you refuse to wound others. The chosen understand that love is the greatest weapon against darkness because it disarms hatred at its root. To love deeply after being hurt is a divine act of courage. It means you trust that God is your defender and you don't need to repay evil with evil. You learn that revenge belongs to the Lord, and your only assignment is to remain pure in heart. The chosen know that the blessing cannot flow through a bitter spirit, so they keep their hearts soft even when the world tries to harden them. They refuse to let pain rewrite their personality. They rise above offense, knowing that love always wins in the end. A perfect example of this is found in the story of Jesus on the cross. Betrayed by His own disciple, mocked by the very people He came to save, and crucified unjustly, yet in His final moments, His words were, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is the essence of divine love, the ability to forgive in the face of unimaginable pain. Through that act, Jesus not only fulfilled His mission, but revealed the heart of the Father. His forgiveness broke the power of sin and opened the door for redemption. In your own life, the same principle applies. When you forgive someone who hurt you deeply, you are not diminishing your pain. You are demonstrating your power. Forgiveness is not losing, it's winning on a higher level. It sets you free from the poison of bitterness and aligns your heart with God's peace. Every time you choose to love again, to trust again, to show grace where others would show hatred, heaven smiles. That's what it means to be chosen, to carry the heart of God in a world that desperately needs to see it. You may be scarred, but your scars shine with glory because they tell the story of a love that refused to die. And that kind of love, patient, forgiving, and unwavering, is the greatest sign that you truly belong to Him. When you are truly chosen by God, your eyes begin to open to something most people overlook, His divine hand guiding every moment of your life. You start to see purpose where others see pain and direction where others see disappointment. It's as if the veil is lifted and you realize that nothing was ever random, nothing was ever wasted, and nothing ever happened outside His loving control. The chosen learn that life is not a series of accidents, but a carefully woven masterpiece where every thread, bright or dark, contributes to a greater picture of divine destiny. In the beginning, it's hard to see God's hand in everything. When things fall apart, when prayers seem unanswered, when the path is dark, our natural instinct is to ask, "Why me?" But as you grow in faith, your heart shifts from questioning to trusting. You begin to understand that even the seasons of loss, heartbreak, and silence have meaning. God's hand doesn't only move in blessings, it moves in burdens too. The closed doors were not rejection, they were redirection. The waiting wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The tears weren't wasted. They were watering the soil for the next season of growth. The chosen have eyes that see beyond the immediate. They understand that God is not just the God of the mountaintop, He's also the God of the valley. Every season, the joyful and the painful, the clear and the confusing, carries divine purpose. When you walk through dark times, you start to realize that even in silence, God is speaking. Even when it feels like He's absent, He's arranging things behind the scenes. Sometimes He hides His hand so you'll learn to trust His heart. And once you've walked with Him long enough, you start to see that His fingerprints were on every chapter, even the ones that broke you. Seeing God's hand in every season changes the way you live. It gives you peace in chaos, patience in delay, and gratitude in every circumstance. You stop rushing the process because you realize that everything is on divine schedule. You stop resenting your past because you finally see how God used it to shape your purpose. The chosen know that God's plan doesn't always make sense, but it always makes you stronger. When you understand that, you begin to thank God not just for what He gives, but also for what He takes away. A powerful example of this truth is the story of Ruth. Her life seemed to fall apart in a single season. She lost her husband, left her home, and followed her mother-in-law Naomi to a foreign land with nothing but faith. From the outside, her story looked like tragedy, but God's hand was quietly at work. In a land she didn't know, Ruth met Boaz, a man who would redeem her life and lineage. Through that union, she became the great grandmother of King David and part of the bloodline that would lead to Jesus Christ. What looked like loss was actually the seed of legacy. God's hand was on her even in the pain. In your own life, there will be times when you don't understand what God is doing. But when you are chosen, you learn to rest in the truth that He knows what He's doing. Even when you don't, one day you will look back and see how every broken piece fit perfectly into His plan. You'll see how the waiting built your patience, how the heartbreak deepened your compassion, and how the delays saved you from destruction. Every season, the bitter and the sweet, carries the fingerprints of your Father. And when you finally understand that, your heart will no longer say, "Why me?" It will whisper, "Thank you, Lord, for trusting me with this story." Because being chosen doesn't mean every season is easy. It means every season is meaningful, and in every moment, His hand never leaves yours. So if your heart feels heavy, your path unclear, and your spirit weary, take courage. You are not forgotten. You are favored. The pressure you feel is the proof of your purpose. God's chosen ones are not always the loudest, the strongest, or the most visible, but they are the most faithful. You were handpicked before time began, wrapped in grace and set apart for glory. When the world can't see your worth, remember, this truth heaven already does. You are God's favorite, chosen one, not because of what you've done, but because of who He is. Stand tall in that truth. Walk boldly in that calling. And when you step into the room, let all of creation know the chosen has arrived.